Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm a senior at UNC studying environmental science with a concentration in energy. And this semester I worked with UNC Energy Management, and I looked at water consumption on campus. So a little bit more about UNC Energy Management. They oversee energy and water usage on campus, and they work towards improving efficiency. I kind of just put a picture of some projects they're working on this fiscal year. So yeah, they're working hard always on keeping our campus efficient. I worked with 3 mentors in the department, Cindy Register, Meg Holton, and Jessica O'Hara. I had an awesome time working with them, and I thought it was a really unique experience to be able to work with a team of women in kind of a field that is historically dominated by men. So I thought that was a unique opportunity. As you can see, we had a lot of fun in our meetings. So my roles and responsibilities, essentially this project was centered around understanding how water is consumed on campus. So the goal was to understand what looks normal for a building. And then from that, identify any anomalies or opportunities for water conservation measures. So I looked at about 65 academic affair buildings. And so I looked at pre-COVID data to determine what kind of is normal for the building and how COVID impacted this. I identified anything unusual, any anomalies, and then from this I calculated leak alert metrics to use for each building so we can continue to have the highest standards of water conservation in the future. I used a few different things to do this data analysis. I got most of my data on water consumption from Agua Vista, which is a software platform that Awasa uses for each of their customers. So every building, I could find water consumption and some information on typical patterns that they have. I also utilized UNC Plan Room, which is a database that holds information about buildings on campus. So I needed things like square footage, year of construction. And so I kind of took this data from Agua Vista, all my water consumption and data I needed about buildings, and put this into Microsoft Excel and did some analysis with basic functions. I also needed to utilize the facilities GIS planning maps with the help of my mentors, because quite a few buildings actually share a meter. So it was really important to investigate what buildings are on the same meter to understand water consumption as a whole. This is a snapshot from Agua Vista of UNC's total water consumption from the past year. I kind of wanted to show this to just give you an idea of how COVID has impacted our water consumption overall. As you can see, we kind of attempted a normal semester in August of 2020. Campus shut down soon after that, which explains this large dip in water consumption. We slowly made our way back up into the fall 2021 recent semester. But I wanted to note that our peak in 2020 is a little bit higher than our peak in 2021. And even though I did not analyze every building on campus that is contributing to this entire graph here, I did analyze some that kind of can explain why the peak is a little bit lower for our recent fall semester. So I did a couple different measurements of water consumption analysis. My first was water use intensity. And this is a way to make consumption relative to square footage. So it's kind of an efficiency value. But as you can see by this graph, every property type that I evaluated in my list of buildings decreased with COVID, which makes sense because campus activity was very low. And this is very similar to our average daily use per property type. Most of these decreased minus shop space, which stayed about the same. There were still university faculty and employees who were on campus running the university. And so after I kind of got my water use intensity values and my average daily values, I needed to establish leak alerts. And this is important because the Agua Vista software cannot really provide an accurate leak alert value. because UNC is just one customer profile, but we have hundreds of meters making up campus. And each of those meters has varying consumption levels. So we have buildings that use thousands of gallons of water per day, and we have some buildings that use little to none. So it's difficult to establish a standard leak alert. So in order to calculate this, I used a simple calculation, and I needed to find my average gallons per day per building, the standard deviation of that data range, and the leak alert is just the average plus twice the standard deviation. And so all of this information is consolidated in my deliverable, which is a report on individual water meters. I wanted to show this building specifically, just to give you an idea of how water consumption has changed in some buildings on campus. So this is the administrative office building. We can see that our average daily use between pre-COVID and COVID decreased significantly. And if we look at this graph around March 2020, when everyone was sent home from campus, we can see that consumption levels in the gray are very low. And they remain low into the next year, which is represented by this blue. And the administrative office building, from my understanding, makes up administrative related roles like finance and human resources. So I kind of assumed that most of these employees kind of transitioned to a remote platform after COVID hit and remained in this platform, which could explain why we saw a lower max in fall 2021. So this was one example of how COVID was pretty impactful on water consumption in this specific building. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience in this role. The biggest thing I'd say I take away from this was my appreciation for the community that keeps our university running. Before this, I personally didn't think much about it, and I don't think the average student really considers everyone who actually provides a safe and comfortable university for us to study and learn. So looking at buildings that weren't on main campus and weren't related to academics, I learned a lot about different departments on campus and what they do. So overall, gained a greater appreciation for those who actually keep the university running. This was also one of my biggest data analysis projects. So I really got an opportunity to kind of sharpen my Excel skills and learn how to tackle large data sets. And then in general, I just learned about how we consume water on campus and how it's regulated and what kind of water consumption measures are in place, or water conservation measures. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to my mentors. I had a great semester working with them, and I would love to take any questions.